back, Snack Cakes, to Dusk, a two-lit podcast, and today I am joined by our technicians. Who are you? Where are you from? What did you do?
Hi, I'm Wyatt. I was the lights operator for the run of Dusk, as well as assisting with sound post um, Molly's departure. What was the other question? Where am I from? I'm from Alabama originally, but am now living here in Edinburgh. Is that it?
Andrew, my husband.
Oh,
And we're married. That too. Molly?
I am Molly. I was originally the sound designer from the workshop at Gannon, and then I came onto this project as still sound designer, sound operator, sound person, and I guess Angela's lackey when she needed me to do things. That's what I mostly did. I'm from a little town called Edinburgh, but in Pennsylvania, not Scotland.
The irony is lost on no one.
It was so fun to go around Scotland being like, I'm from Edinburgh, not Scotland.
It's not in this country.
No.
The other place that named all of its cities and states after places here.
Yeah.
So what is keeping you too lit this week? What is giving you life? What's getting you excited?
That just in general, being here and existing in Edinburgh and
Yeah.
Go for it, man.
just that's it.
You're doing great, sweetie.
I guess all I have is that I don't have another 4-show weekend to go to. Working community theaters. 4-show weekend's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to relax and then go back to it this weekend. But that's fine.
We love the creative life.
Yeah, constant.
It's just either you have nothing on or you have 500 things on at the exact same time.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Always. It's the hurry up and wait all the time. So how did you find yourself involved in this little project known as Dusk?
um, uh, Obviously, I'm married to one of the actresses, so when the production got here to Edinburgh and it, there wasn't a person to operate the lights at the or during the runs of the show. They ask, "Is there anyone we know or anyone the cast knows that can do this?" And after a little bit of discussion, I said, "I can probably do that."
Mm-hmm. I think his exact words were, if I remember correctly, I either do this or I won't see you this month.
I mean, that's fair.
It was fair. It was a very fair assessment, especially when we ended up adding in the extra show days towards the end there. What about you, Molly? I don't think I've asked you how you got roped into being a part of this production.
So I was working at Gannon part-time and teaching a class. And Dusk was supposed to be my time off because I had just done things and I was going to be doing the musical they're doing next. And I was supposed to be off. But then Angela's like, we could really use somebody just to make the sound effects and just operate the board during shows. So I was like, okay, I'm here anyway. So I started kind of as they didn't have anyone else who wanted to do sound. So I jumped on because I worked there. And then I was like, I should leave the country once in my life. And so that's why I agreed to go to Scotland. I was like, otherwise, I'm never going to leave the country.
What an assessment.
Yeah, just whims.
Just yeet.
Yeah.
Run
But
away.
is it not Dusk if it's not on a whim and full whimsy?
Full whimsy, which is really interesting going into the process this time around, I think, because there's so much more planned.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like being told by the fringe people, the fringe society, that like, oh, you guys are way more organized than 90% of the people that do the fringe. And I was like,
But I'm so sorry.
if that's any indication of how chaotic the fringe setup is.
Yeah.
Well, that gives me stress.
It gives me stress, and I performed in it every time.
Rough.
So what was your guys' biggest fear coming into the process?
For me, at least, it was I had a fair amount of experience working in like churches and that sort of audiovisual style, and had never worked on a theatrical production. So there was a lot of anxiety about that. And then it was a very short training process for me, before I was on my own. And then, but
Tell us about your training process.
I watched a rehearsal. I watched the first production, and then I was guided on the third production or second production, and then I was doing it on the third. Through how many did we have?
27.
Yeah.
27 shows. And on that third one, that was the day Matt left, right? So you were completely on your own? Yeah.
I tried my best to be helpful.
Oh yeah, incredibly helpful. But you were also like you had your job to do that was
Yeah.
your priority, and I was like, okay, if I have questions, I can ask, but if I really got to figure it out because it's moving too fast. If I have a question, it will pass by the time.
Yeah. What about you? What were your fears going into the process?
Into the process was more on doing shows is not new to me. And I've done them so often that I'm like, whatever. Sound is sound, lights is lights, people are people. But my biggest fear going into it was I'm not very good with meeting new people. Shocker, shocker. I don't love a lot of strangers. And then I was also, I think the main thing I spent being anxious about was I've never been in an airport. What am I supposed to do? I've never been in an airport before. And I'm freaking out about that. Once I got on the plane and I went through the process once, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. But other than that, the fact that I only knew, so met Dan through FaceTime, never really in person. I only knew Morgan, Angela, Anthony, and Dylan. I think those are the only people from the workshop that moved on. So I was very like, there's going to be now like 20 or so people that I've never met before that I have to now get to know in like 2 weeks. So that was my introversion.
We weren't too scary. We weren't too scary, the cast.
No.
What do you mean you don't know? You're married to a member of the cast.
Oh, I was still terrified about meeting everyone too.
Yeah, but by the end of it, you were like the mascot of the cast. Like anyone would have absolutely murdered anyone who went against you. By the end of it, though.
I wasn't even there the whole time, and I would have. I was ready to be like, Miss Wyatt, Miss with you.
So this can go for either the fringe experience or for the workshop experience or any time in between, but what was the most unhinged experience you had working with Dusk?
I really wasn't super in the unhinged. Have have we talked? I'm sure the podcast has already talked about this, but the most unhinged thing I experienced was the mic coming on from behind the set.
We really haven't, so say
Yeah.
it.
I don't remember the exact wording, but it was one of the first times we were trying mics with through all of the dialogue, and it was I think it was a new technician that night, and they turned on the mic because someone was talking, and they were in the bathroom.
And the entire auditorium got to hear, I'm about to take a shit. In fact, it was like a really tender moment as well on stage. Like it was one of like the quieter moments between between Edwin and Mia. And all of a sudden you just hear, I'm about to take a shit. And backstage we were just like, what is happening? So we were like running, trying to figure out who it was. I mean, we knew it was Eve. But we were like running to the bathroom, being like, shh.
As the person with their name on the project as sound designer, it just makes me go, let me just think away. I know it's my fault, but it is my fault. I still blame myself.
It was not your fault at all. It was one of the first nights that we had mic packs. That was probably the tamest issue we had with the mic. Improper timing. What about you?
On the mic thing, I just remember, so leaving early, I told Morgan, I told Dan, I told Angela, I told anyone who would listen to me. I have nothing else going on at home. And at the time the show is happening, it is like middle of the afternoon for me. I'm like, go ahead and call me. I know that soundboard. I know how to break it down. Is low key my career, my degree. So like I should know generally how to do it. I told everyone, just call. And then I know that you ended up having to hold house one of the first nights when it wasn't Eli. And I remember he was on the phone with me and he's like, I think we figured it out. And I went, well, okay, but I'm willing to be on the phone and listen to the show. I'm willing to sit through this, or like at least let me hear the beginning of the show happen and then you can hang up on me. And he's like, no, we're fine. We're really fine. We've got this handled. And I was like, okay, hung up. And then after the show ended, I just see all these texts from Morgan and Dan being like, the show was held and all these things went wrong. I'm like, why didn't you call me back? I was sitting here willing.
As soon as you left, we had so many problems with the soundboard.
And Eli was wonderful.
Eli was phenomenal. And then the board itself could not handle the fact that shows were going on from 10 in the morning until 1 in the morning.
I am very much under the impression, because this is not the first time, that if I leave a project, whatever technology I left behind decides, nope, we don't work anymore. Absolutely. And I'm like, I'm flattered, tech, but behave.
I mean, even the lighting board was going out at the end. It was down to one USB port.
That poor board.
The poor board. So I've asked some of the other performers this question, but this probably means something completely different to you guys as technicians, and you were there for not the entire run, but being more of an introverted individual, what was it like maintaining your physical and mental health and mental energy being a part of this show? Was there any tactics that you employed, any things you wish you would have done better?
I think physically, I was definitely missing sleep, but who wasn't missing sleep during the Fringe? Um, by the time we walked back to our apartment, it was close to 2 a.m. getting all of her costumes hung up and getting back. And I'm sure that was worse for the people all the way out at Harriet Watt or Queen Margaret when that moved, because that was a whole bus ride out. But just sleep was definitely something I should have done better physically. Mentally, I was checked out until it was showtime because I'm very introverted normally, and I was like, I am not going to people unless I have to people. Because when it was call time, you were peopling until 1 in the morning. That was it for me.
I I will say one of the things that helped with my mental and physical health getting through the Fringe was I left early and didn't stay the whole time, to be honest. Uh, but while I was there, I think I only cried twice. But I've told other people. Um, I shouldn't have gone to any of the PR things. I should not have gone to any of them. They, one, waste of time, especially for me who didn't want to network, didn't want to talk to people I don't know or strike up a conversation with a random stranger. That's not me. Um, and we went to one, and now Morgan bought me a pizza there to make up for how packed this place was. Like you were not able to walk 2 feet without touching somebody because it was just full crowd the entire time. Um, we got to a point where I still had all of my stuff from the show because it was straight after. So I had my bag that had my laptop and other things, and so my back was killing me. Going through this crowd, also panicking that somebody will take something from my bag because it had all my important technology in it. And then we're an hour in. I was so proud of myself. I got half an hour in, and I was like, I'm not panicking. I can do crowds now. I'm fine. An hour in, I'm squatted down, holding my backpack, and I just have Morgan come over my shoulder and go, "Are you ready to leave?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And it was so sweet when we got up to walk away because I'm like, I'm done. Dylan made sure that I was between people the whole time we were walking out. I was like, "You, I'm noticing." And then we got out of the building, and I just broke down into tears. Morgan felt horrible, but not as bad as I was feeling in that moment.
Yeah. Fringe is a lot. It's even if you are more extroverted, it's it's still a lot to deal with.
I mean, generally, I don't. The sleep thing didn't bother me because I knew I wasn't going to have to keep it up the entire month.
Ooh,
I was
yeah.
like, I could dedicate these 2 weeks that I was there to just being there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I work on low amount of sleep. That's fine.
So Molly, you've kind of alluded to, how the show has developed and changed over the last, year and a half. So what has it been like to see kind of the early stages of the show going into the Fringe? And Wyatt, what was it like seeing the show change so drastically from the beginning of the Fringe to the end of the Fringe?
I'll go because timeline I'm first. From the workshop to the Fringe cast, the cast is really what noticeably changed the show for me. Because, like, the fact that Fringe wasn't going to have the set pieces that we could have at Gannon, and Gannon had other things we could use and operate with. So, and the show didn't have some songs, and that sometimes it was the cast couldn't handle it, and some it just didn't come up until for the workshop. We were in our second weekend, and I get a text from the stage manager. So I don't know if Morgan's told you, but there's a new song at the end. It was when Bia sings after Edwin leaves the restaurant.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was at its second weekend. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I had to go through and put that into the like show file, and then Brian who was like at Gannon he just added a spot. Like we can't make a whole like thing for it, but it was not necessary spot. Yeah. That was a moment I kind of was like, Morgan, what are you doing? We've opened. But that's me learning workshop versus a actual like production that's been established. So it was a learning opportunity for me. And then Fringe, there was adult professionals, and there's nothing against the Gannon cast because they were wonderful for what they could do, but they're young and unexperienced and college students who some liked each other and some didn't like each other, and it was very apparent. And while I only know like inklings of like dramas with Fringe cast because I wasn't there long enough, and also like they're not big dramas, but I know like certain how they're acting different with each other, and those kinds of things were starting, and I could tell. But when it came to, and there's definitely some big personalities in the Fringe cast that can go unnamed. We know who the big personalities are. They still held it while the show was going on professionally. And it's something that was also very nice to get to work with, from being an educator to I'm fully a technician. You do not need me for more than my job. Show-wise, it was the show. Added more jokes. It's funny. I do like the songs that got added.
We'll see how many of them make it to this Fringe. Rewrites.
Oh.
Rewrites. What about you? What was it like seeing it from that rehearsal to the 27th show?
From, I guess that was technically dress rehearsal, or the last dress rehearsal.
Yeah, I think that was the last dress rehearsal before Get In.
Before being in the space, and then the soft open, and then the full open. I guess the press nights. Mm-hmm. The show was awesome. I think I saw it the most out of any person at Fringe. Just because Dan and Morgan weren't always in the room, and I was always up in the audience back behind. But I enjoyed watching it, or like the show itself didn't ever actually change, but the confidence in the actors and making different choices every night, and especially with some of the R name bits, where they would go a little off script and it would get a laugh, and then that would be something that would come back more frequently from that point. And Meet the Family was just absolute chaos by the end of it.
I can imagine.
And I was just like, they just have to get in their spot for their light. I don't, they can do whatever they want. So up until it's their turn to be in the spotlight, but they better be in that spotlight.
Yeah.
What was the craziest change or the biggest change that you remembered?
Uh, Definitely, it was definitely Meet the Family with the bread child, which I think it was Life that she screamed.
Yeah.
But Life just kept the lyric Life in the song just kept getting progressively louder and more violent through to eventually the end just being screamed as the bread gets flung across the room.
Blood curdling scream. Iconic.
It was iconic.
I remember early on in the did I yell at this at the Fringe cast or the workshop cast? For Meet the Family, it because there's silverware and things were getting tossed and thrown. I was like, I remember yelling, "You cannot throw silverware. You will literally harm someone. You cannot throw a knife. You no."
I don't think we had knives. We definitely had spoons.
I think we cut the knives after like the first night of the workshop.
Yeah, because knives
Yeah,
did not make it to. We
yeah,
had forks, and we took the forks off before Rosalind swiped the
yes,
table because flying forks are also.
yes.
We don't want to impale anyone.
I I think I'm the one that first made the note to Morgan that those like your silverware, you can't. You're going to hurt somebody.
Oh, don't worry. We found other ways of hurting one another. I didn't realize that I was actually smacking Anthony with the towel. And when I recorded with them, um, I was informed that his fear was real. And he legitimately thought I was gonna jump him after after our little interaction. He was like, it got very sibling. It was very sibling. And I was like, I wasn't actually aiming for him, but sometimes like the very tip of the towel would actually smack him. And so his reactions to being smacked were all genuine.
Anthony's such a trooper.
I still do not know how he didn't realize the fire hydrant. You weren't there for the fire extinguisher incident. Do you remember the fire extinguisher incident?
It is a blur at this point.
Okay. I went off into the vestibule and I stood there with Andy before we go on, and I like take the graduation cap off of Anthony's head and do that whole little bit before I know what's best. And that little vestibule, the only thing that was in there were sound boxes and a fire extinguisher for the theater. And I was wearing, that knit kind of net material shawl. And it was very close. So we were like pushed up against the wall so that we couldn't be seen. It was probably like 2 by 2.
Yeah.
Very small amount of space. And I come running on to interact with Eglet, and my sweater got caught on the fire extinguisher and ripped it off the wall, and I took it on stage with me.
Just live theater.
Just theater, man. That's a top scarf. Shawl.
Yeah, I just remember it going,
No.
and he was so good. He like made it make sense. I don't know how. He was so good at just the physical comedy and covering up for all of our mistakes. It was lovely. Absolutely lovely. But yeah, we found different ways of accidentally harming ourselves on the stage. The plates shattered every night.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. The plate, by the end of it, we almost did it intentionally.
R.I.P. the candles the last night. The before aforementioned forks were stuck into the candles the last night of Meet the Family.
Which I think Angela would have had a coronary if we had done that at any other point. Ooh, the night the raisins busted on stage was also fun. Because
That happened in the workshop.
Yeah, the bag of raisins. Because I would fling them backwards and Jamie was supposed to catch them. And one night it hit the ground, they just went. And there were just raisins on everyone's shoes.
That's awful.
It was really, really funny and very funny to work around. So you've talked about Meet the Family, but is that your favorite scene? What's your favorite scenes in the show or favorite songs?
Mine is baseball, specifically after the third 8 count, because that was the timing cue was press and go on the third 8 count, and if I did it correctly, baseball looked beautiful. And I didn't have to touch anything for the entire song and could be like, awesome, this is so well produced, and actually got to sit back and watch that scene without having to think about, okay, this is my next cue, this is my next cue. But every night it was so stressful going up to that because I was like, the scene will look bad if I am a count off.
Yeah.
Those are always the most rewarding, though. But I feel bad for anyone who ever has to call shows that I like design because I just make everything buttons. Because I'm like, but it looks so good when it's done well. Rewarding. I was very proud of one transition. I like the songs, but one transition, I think it was made out of the duet that was added in between the mom and dad.
Oh, you're talking about the transition, the clothing transition?
Yeah, I think so.
Where Molly becomes Dr. Dad. Where ensemble.
Okay.
Or just the song from it.
Oh, just the song. Okay.
Just the song from it. I do like that bit. And when it happened, it was great. When it didn't happen, I'm like, it's a parody musical, so still great.
Still funny.
Yeah, still good. Just the song from it, I made like just the looping because that was I feel like half the work I actually had to do that actually related to sound was just making all the songs into loops. That one I was particularly proud of because it sounds beautifully into next. And I would always, you guys were starting to get really good at whatever time like that was covering. And I was getting annoyed because you would make it through one section of it and then the scene can start. I'm like, but no one will hear my loop. No one will hear how perfect it is. So I'm like, that's the only one you saw.
We knew it was excellent.
I think that one stands out to me the most because it wasn't part of the workshop. And when I heard it for the first time, I went, that is such a pleasant addition. I just like the sound of it. And they sounded lovely. That's the one that stands out. I liked putting the thunder into baseball.
I think the song you're talking about is You Saved Me.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 That's it. I enjoyed that one.
That one was a funny scene to have to do. Because we were all interacting in like our couples, our pairs.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy and I just had like the weirdest things that we would do. But I mean, we were Alice and Jasper. We could do whatever we wanted to do. and it would be hysterical because they're Alice and Jasper. And we could be as unhinged as we want it to be because it makes sense to the characters. Any other favorites? I'll tell you my not favorite was sitting backstage and being like, how long will the kiss scene take tonight?
I hate that. I hated it.
It was the only time that I got to sit down during the production. However, it was so awkward.
It was even awkward backstage hearing the noises that they made on stage. And when we had mics introduced to it, it was like amplified mouth sounds for 6 minutes. They enjoyed doing that so much. And my favorite bit was when Jamie entered as dad. After that, because that was even more awkward because he did the creepy, how you doing, babe? Just ugh, so gross, all of it, so cringy. Yeah, just embracing the cringe. There were some times where it was just impossible to embrace the cringe, though, even as a performer in it.
I understand the humor of it, but only to such lengths.
Oh goodness, excuse me. So if you could go back and tell yourself a bit of wisdom or change something, knowing what you know now about what the fringe process is like and what being a part of the show is like, what would you tell yourself? What would you adapt to earlier?
I certainly would have told myself to drink more water. And if I like go back to day one or like day one at that first rehearsal, buy a fan from the booth. I think it was like towards the end we got tiny little fans to sit there and it made a world of difference.
I would tell myself that I should get over this imposter syndrome that I have. One of my biggest concerns, like I riled myself up right before tech because that was the first time I saw all the equipment we had ordered. Half of it we did not need, and I kind of just, no offense to the guy because he was very nice to me, suckered into it because equipment isn't my strongest suit. And so if a professional's telling me you need this equipment, I'm going to listen to you more than I'm going to listen to my background because I'm more editing design rather than hardware engineer. But I would tell myself, you do know what you're doing. It doesn't matter that you're in another country doing it. Because I had riled myself up for tech, and then we got into tech, and I was like, wait, I know how to do all these things. And I was on a high, and then the PR event broke that, but that's okay. But I was so on a high that it was going well, and I'm sorry that it broke once I left, but it went well for tech.
Stop that imposter syndrome. I know, easier said than done. You'll know for next time.
Yeah.
The next time you leave the country and go and work with a company doing a world premiere cast performance of a parody beloved text from the 2000s. Having worked with a parody material of this text, what are your thoughts on Twilight now?
I would like to be, in my defense, I didn't join the project because I like Twilight. Never read it in my life. The only Twilight consumption I've had is clips and having watched pretty much any channel that has critiqued it or made fun of it. Also, I think what's really funny and coincidental, I got a Facebook notification of like, you posted on this day. I posted on this day. Oh no, my dad is watching Breaking Dawn. What do I do? So coincidental. This is a Twilight day at my house.
Mm. Mm.
So that's my relationship.
I hadn't seen Twilight, any of it, or engaged with it at all until 3 weeks before the Fringe production happened. And Sarah and Cosette sat me down, and every night for 4 nights we watched one of the movies.
And we have a master list of all of his reactions.
There's some good ones in there.
The prevailing one is, oh no. Just repeatedly, oh no. And sir, put your shirt back on. Was he referring to Robert Pattinson or Taylor Lautner? Yes.
I think the only clip I have seen in full is the big battle. That's a dream. Spoilers.
Vision.
Yeah, Vision. Yes. Dream. This is how much I like
Twilight. Like almost 10 years ago at this point. If people haven't seen it now, I don't think we have to call spoilers.
I still haven't watched them. Spoilers.
Oh my goodness.
I'll just be shamed. I don't care. Fight me.
Shame, shame, shame on the unbeliever. No, I think most of the cast's realizations about Twilight having returned to the source material after being involved in the show or before being involved in the show is that we cannot believe that we valued the relationships in this series as much as we did when we were younger. Like, we look back at it now and we're like, these are obviously weird relationships happening, and people are just too okay with a lot of things in this world building here. So, any other thoughts?
No.
No other thoughts? Head empty? No additional thoughts about Twilight or our adaptation of it in parody form?
Hey, I'd rather watch Dusk than ever watch Twilight.
That's fair.
Yeah. That can be
I agree. I will say, of all of the characters, I feel like Alice is one of the few who actually has decent views on things. Though Rosalie as well. Bit of a drama queen, but you know, it is what it is. So anything you guys want to plug, anything you guys want to share with our listeners before we pop off?
I'm part of it's switching over from D&D, but a D&D live stream on Twitch, and we also post it on YouTube. It's called Health Hits Experience. We are in a hiatus right now, but we're coming back in the summer. So quirky, fun people in downtown having fun.
Excellent.
Playing a game.
Sounds fun. Well, Morgan would absolutely be a dog and a gas if I didn't say, go watch our pro shoots, go follow us on the social medias, and listen to our cast album on anywhere you listen to music. But guys, it's been so good catching up. Well, I mean, I live with you, but it's been so good catching up with you, Molly. Thank you guys for hanging out today, and to all of our snack cakes listening, thanks. Drink some water, you filthy rats. We love you. Bye.